So, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for coming into a cave deep in the heart of Soho on a Sunday afternoon. It's a Friday afternoon. That's very sunny. We're really grateful to Mondomusica for creating this opportunity for us to talk about and explore some issues that are relatively new but are of great importance to the industry. As you may know, in the last year, there have been two significant developments. One is that the U.S. government initiated and brought to an international United Nations forum the idea of creating a musical instrument passport. It's designed as an alternative to existing import and export permits that are required when there's CITES listed material in a musical instrument. The folks to my right are going to get into that in more detail in a moment. The second significant development in the last 2 months, actually, was the announcement of a ban on the trade and traveling with musical instruments and other objects that contain African elephant ivory. The ban was the result of a presidential task force, so it started at the highest level of government. There is also a presidential advisory council with some very senior high-level folks that have been advising the task force. That led to the development of a national strategy, and the national strategy called for taking measures swiftly to control traffic of African elephant ivory and also rhinoceros, because the populations of those species have been declining very precipitously, despite the existence already of strict laws prohibiting trade. So that has also caused a massive ripple through the music community. There's a lot of there's a tremendous need for all of us to understand and learn more about what the implications are of these new rules. The music industry has been working already in partnership with the U.S. government since the musical, and actually slightly before the musical instrument passport went into place, to try to gather information that can be shared with the community. And I have to say we've had really good cooperation from the folks to my right with Fish and Wildlife Service, and to the left with the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. I'm going to refer to from now on as APHIS. But we're really grateful to them for coming up into the lion's den to help explain what these new rules mean as best they can, and to take your questions and your comments and give you an opportunity to speak directly with them. We also have on the panel 3 folks from the music industry, and I'll introduce everybody in a moment. But we thought that we would put some folks up on this side to act as kind of responders and prompters, because all of us here have been paying some degree of attention to these issues and may have some questions that might not come up from you folks. So the format, it looks like a very daunting group of people here, but the format I think we'd like to use is to have basically 3 presentations. One from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that'll go for about 20 to 30 minutes. Second one from USDA, APHIS. There'll be two presentations from APHIS. And then we'll open the floor up immediately to your questions, and also questions from those of us up here on the panel. So let me just quickly introduce to you the folks that are here, and I'm going to look down at my notes now so that I don't misdescribe some of the folks' titles here. So at the far end, we have Leilani Sanchez, who is a supervisory wildlife inspector in the Port of New Jersey for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. To her left is Tamisha Woolard, who is a senior wildlife inspector from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. She's in the Washington office. And to Tamisha's left is Tim Van Norman, who's the chief of the branch of permits in what's called the National Management Authority of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Just to my right is Heather Noonan, who is the vice president for advocacy of the League of American Orchestras. Young Chin you probably all know very well and needs no description. It couldn't be described even if it was needed. And then to Young's left is Colin Gallahue with, I always mess up Sam's name, Sam Zygmuntovich. Sam Zygmuntovich. I'm still working on that, but you probably also know Colin very well. To Colin's left is Anna Margina, who's a botanist with the USDA's regional office here in New Jersey. Is that the right way to describe it? Regional office? Yeah. To Anna's left is Randy Cadet, who is an area supervisor, also with the regional office in New Jersey. And to Randy's left is John Varimus, who is National CITES coordinator for APHIS. And John's flown in from Chicago?
No, Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Okay, great.
And we're here to help.
Yes, we're here to help.
Very wise words. And you know, I just want to say, since you've mentioned that, we are also here to help the government, because we, as a community, have been saying that we support the goal of protecting elephants, African elephants. I don't think there's any disagreement about that. The question is, how can that be done in a way that also preserves the future and the present of music as we know it? And that is essential. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Leilani, and she will do the presentation on behalf of Fish and Wildlife Service.
I'm not the one to sit down.
Oh, you got to put the mic on.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now? Excellent. All right. So my name is Leilani Sanchez, and I'm a supervisor wildlife inspector at the Port of New York. With me also is Tanisha Woolard and Suzanne Norman, and we make a really great team together. All right. Want to take the next slide? Okay. So I just want to give you a little overview about Fish and Wildlife and what we do. And our mission statement is to work with others to conserve, protect, enhance fish, wildlife, and plants and their habitats for the continuing benefit of the American people. And one of the ways we do it, my particular program, is the Wildlife Inspector Program. And unfortunately, I have a lot of animation, so you can feel how we go through this. One of the things we do is we regulate the multi-billion-dollar international wildlife trade. One of the things that we do is we also investigate illegal wildlife importation and exploitation. We review and inspect wildlife shipments, and we enforce U.S. foreign wildlife import and export laws. And part of doing that is we identify thousands of different types of wildlife species. All right, well, you'll normally find us, if you weren't aware, is that we are located also at the passenger terminal. We will look at air cargo, ocean cargo, as well as express consignment centers. There's also crews over at the border crossing too. So every place that you're entering into the U.S., you will find Fish and Wildlife located. Okay, so who are our partners? We have U.S. Customs and Border Protection. They're the ones you probably see most when you're doing your international travel. We work a lot with U.S. Department of Agriculture, Center of Disease Control, Food and Drug Administration, and we also work with all the other different government agencies. So whenever you're coming across and you're not quite sure of who you have to deal with, you're going to see a whole lot of people coming to the air passenger terminal, and we're just going to be amongst a huge team of other government agencies that you'll probably be talking to. Okay, so the first definition is, to solve everything, what is wildlife? And this is how it's defined. It's fish or wildlife, any wild animal, whether alive or dead, whether or not bred in captivity, and including any part, product, egg, or offspring thereof. Once you know what wildlife is, we'll kind of get the idea, is this something I would declare to Fish and Wildlife? Is this something we regulate? Another question that people say is, what is commercial? All right? For our definition, commercial is relating to any activity, including actual or intended, import, export, re-export, sale, offer for sale, purchase, transfer, donation, exchange, or provision of a service that is reasonably likely to result in an economic gain or benefit, including but not limited to profit, activity, cash, or time. Right, so the huge scope of things and different activities that are all under what is commercial activity. And you can find those in our definitions of what our regulations are. Right. Some of the big things, obviously, from New York is the huge fashion industry. All those different items are commercially imported. We have the skin trade, we have CITES listed snake species, pythons, and we also have different goods that you'll see coming through there. The other one is art acquisitions. I just want to give you kind of an overview of what things you might actually never have thought, okay, that butterfly picture, that's wildlife, that doesn't even declare to fish and wildlife. There are some CITES in here say protect this butterfly species, so you need to be really aware of what's going on in the trade. Right? And these are being traded commercially. Obviously, there's some work ivory over there, and that is not allowed. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for my animation. I got a little crazy. All right. So then the other thing is, okay, well, we know what commercial is, and it's a broad definition. What is non-commercial? All right. And for our purposes, it's pretty straightforward. It means any activity that is not commercial and not commercial, it includes, but it's not limited to personal use. So the other things that could be included in that is sports hunted trophy. That is considered non-commercial. All right. All right. So then we get to, okay, well, can you define this thing called personal use for me? All right. It means use that is not commercial and it's solely for your enjoyment. You're going to use it only for yourself and your personal enjoyment. An example of personal use, you go in on a plane, going overseas, you have, say, an alligator houndback. That's your personal use. That wouldn't be something that you would have to declare. You're using it and you're carrying it on the plane. As long as it's not an endangered species, it's an alligator threatened, you can have it, you can carry it on your back, not a problem. How do I import, export my wildlife shipment? All right, I'm going to try to keep it really simple, and I always want you to go back to, if you're ever not sure of what to do, if you need to declare a wildlife, you don't know what permits are listed, contact our offices. All right, there's another picture you'll see ahead, so you have designated ports. My port is a designated port, the Port of New York, and also the Port of New York is also a designated port. We always have someone manned Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30, answering the phone. We get many questions all day long. Do I have to declare a hamster cell line? Do I have to declare my pet dog? I mean, we're there for you, for the public, to answer those questions. So if you're ever not sure, contact our offices. And under this general description, you're going to have to first go through a designated port, so you might as well connect to the local designated port first. You're going to have to get an import-export license for a commercial shipment. You're going to have to file a declaration. We have a form, it's called 3177, and you'll see a copy of that later on. And you're going to have to declare that completely and accurately. It'll be your responsibility to know what that species is. You want the genus and the species and where it came from. You'll have to do some research to find that out. You'll have to also, if you're going to be traveling with live or you're going passenger, or you want someone to meet you at the passenger terminal with your shipment, you need to give us 48-hour notice. And that's so I can say, hey, let my guys know I got to meet a passenger out there. We can make the effort to go out there and meet you and answer any questions about your shipment before you're leaving or coming into the U.S. All right. Another key thing is that Fish and Wildlife, according to regulations, you need to get your shipment cleared by Fish and Wildlife prior to getting your clearance from Customs. All right. And there's a reason for that is because once it leaves Customs Control, it leaves. It's no longer under our jurisdiction. So make sure you get to us first, and then you can clear it to Customs. As always, if something's on a weird hour, flights always seem to happen late at night when everyone's shut down, let us know. We do have overtime, and it is available to you. Okay? All right, so now we have to find out what wildlife is declared. All wildlife is declared. Unless it's a domesticated species, and if you want to find out is this one species something that I have to declare, if not sure, give us a call. It's a very, very small list, things that you wouldn't expect you do have to declare to us. All right, so feel free to always contact us. Also, like as I was saying before, you need to go to a designated port. These are all our designated ports. All right, we have Newark, New York, we have Baltimore, Miami. Contact any of those ports if you're going to be coming into the U.S. or out of. If you're not sure, Do I need to declare what kind of information do I need? We're always available to answer questions. That didn't come up so good. That's actually a copy of our declaration form. It's a 3-177 form. You can go onto our website and get a copy of it, and obviously we're in the modern era, we have electronic declarations too. All right, one of the things we require on your declaration requirement, you absolutely have to provide us with the correct identity of that wildlife. You have to give us the genus of the species and the country of origin. Whether it's captive or wild, that's your responsibility as an importer. And that way we can look up the regulations and tell you what is required for that. As I said, we do electronic declarations. We love electronic declarations. Everything's sent via the computer. You will get an email notice. It helps move the trade quicker. We will file and track everything electronically. We can make adjustments to your electronic declarations. If there's an error, reject it back to you, you can make your corrections and resubmit it. It's a very fluid way of communicating between each of us. The other great thing is that we can search for your shipment. If for some reason you kind of lost your paperwork, we can look at it and track it and make sure everything's okay. You also can pay online, credit card. You know, you don't have to have a check. Everything is a lot easier that way. And also, one program that we love is the eScan. We've been letting a lot of commercial importers activate them onto my port. They can actually upload their documents. There's no more hard copy paperwork. The only hard copy paperwork would be for your original permits. Right, and then I was just telling you before, 48-hour notice, any live or perishable item, you need to notify us at least 48-hour notice for a designated port. I do have a port, we'll talk about it a little down. It's a non-designated port, Philadelphia, and then you have to give us 72 hours notice. But we don't want you using non-designated ports. It's so much easier for you to move things to a designated port. We have people staffed and available for you. All right. Also, with the 48-hour notice, if a shipment's changed or canceled, we can properly notify you. Hey, you know your shipment's delayed. We can communicate better with the importer. That's a great reason to also make sure your 48-hour notice is a lot more detailed. So you want to give us either your airway bill, if you're doing air cargo, if you're doing a passenger flight, it's your flight information, a U.S. contact, you know exactly what you're bringing in, and a copy of your permits. Okay. Licensing for a commercial import export license is $100, and it's good for 1 year. You need to get your license prior to shipping, either importing or exporting. If you have any questions regarding getting an import-export license, please contact either my port, if you contact the Port of New York. They will be able to answer any questions you have regarding that. And this is what your import-export license looks like. If we keep it in our system, and we'll be able to see it, and the inspector will sometimes ask for a copy for it. So it's a good idea when you start getting your documents together, always have a copy of your import-export license and make sure you're tracking it to make sure it's always up to date. All right, port inspections from the field. This is, I always say, make sure, very important, that you get our clearance prior to getting the customs clearance. I know I said it before, but it's very important because once that shipment goes out the door, we can't get a hold of it. It becomes very difficult to get it back into a warehouse, and then you have to pay more fees. Right? The other thing is if something's being held for physical exam, you coordinate that with that port, with the inspector who's actually holding it. And if you're using your electronic declaration, you'll know exactly who the inspector is because it will come back as a direct email to them. So it's a lot of communication back and forth. Definitely communicate whoever the inspector is you're working with. My guys are really good about returning calls, returning emails, so we're always available to the public. And again, if your shipment's on a weird hour, we can make some overtime for you. And then especially if you request it, we can always try to make someone available. All right, so one of the questions I have, what can we do to facilitate? We're telling you to use electronic declarations. I know I've been saying this over again. It will actually make the processing of trade go so much faster. My port, the Port of New York, is the third busiest port in the nation. We process over 16,000 entries a year with only 4 wildlife inspectors. So that's a lot of entries to be looking at. We're going out in the field. So we're asking people to help us. We actively reach out to the import-export communities to use these tools that we have. It makes everyone's job a lot easier and facilitates the legal trade of wildlife. We also ask people to use corporate billing. That way we're not spending our time scanning checks. If you pay online or you get corporate billing, it will make your life easier too. And also we use the e-scan program, as I told you before. If you're an e-filer, you're good standing, just send me an email, request it. I can get you up and online on an e-scan in probably less than 2 hours. You can upload all your documents and the inspector can start reviewing your shipment right away. The other thing is, please use any available resources you have. My guys are always there to help out, but we have a wonderful website, fishandwildlife.gov. You can look up information there. You can go to CITES.org if you want to look anything up. Also, we have access to our regulations. It's on that gpoaccess.gov. I love that website. I'm always on there trying to read things. But we are always available. If you're ever in doubt, feel free, again, give us a call. We're there for the public. Another thing to facilitate, be prepared. Make sure you have all your documents together. Make sure you have your permits. Make sure that everything's good to go so we can give you the green light. And also, if you have your questions, everything depends on the scientific name of the wildlife. So you need to know that, whether it's wild or captive. Because when we look up the regulations for something, we're going to go exactly what you're telling us. All right? Okay, and then we're going to start getting to the fun part, laws. I was trying to keep it as fluid as possible because I know laws can get like dry. Yes, there are many federal laws that protect wildlife. One of them is the Lacey Act, one is the Endangered Species Act, we've got the African Elephant Conservation Act, the Wild Bird Conservation Act. There's a whole list there. These are all laws that we enforce. All right, so again, if you ever have questions, does this thing fall under this law? Do I need to have a permit for it? Please give us a call. That's what my guys live for. We live to look things up for people, to tell you the correct information. We also want to make sure that your wildlife shipment complies with foreign laws. Sometimes we have the Philippine commodity clearance. You're bringing in shells, and who would have thought Philippine requires that you have a commodity clearance form from them before you import it to the U.S. So we do enforce foreign laws too, and anything that might be state law too. CITES. CITES, we're all a member of the Convention of CITES. We're a party member to it. If anyone's not heard of it, it's an international trade agreement. Currently, there's 180 party members, and we've all agreed to protect wildlife with worldwide cooperation. We establish and allow utilization and trade to continue the suitable levels of wildlife so we can maintain that trade at that current level. Alright, so if you've never heard of CITES before, there's 3 classification levels. There's CITES 1, which means that trade is not sustainable. There's CITES 2, which means there is some trade, but the population is closely monitored. You'll have permits for that. And there's CITES 3, where there is also the monitoring of the trade. You'll have either a certificate of origin or you'll have a CITES document, depending on how it comes in. Appendix 1 species, which is the most restricted. It's unsustainable for commercial trade. It requires an import and an export permit. It's sports hunting, like leopards. That's the example I want. Sports hunting trophies, like leopards. The hunters can go out there, they apply for a permit. They have to get a CITES permit from overseas, and they also have to contact our management authority to also get that import permit too. And here's a copy of the import permit, so you can start seeing, okay, this is what the document looks like. In that little section box right there, you'll normally see your special conditions. It'll list exactly what the condition, and this has to do with the leopard permit. All right, so we're going to start getting to the good stuff. All right, what African elephant ivory can still be imported? All right, so African elephant ivory, including antiques, may no longer be imported to the United States for any commercial purpose. The only African elephant ivory that can now be brought into the country with proper documentation is ivory. Okay, you can take your sport hunter trophy in. If can be imported by federal, state, tribal government agency for law enforcement purposes. So you can bring it in for scientific purposes if it's going to benefit the conservation of the species. Worked ivory containing personal items as part of a household move or inheritance, and it has to meet specific criteria. Worked ivory that's part of a musical instrument that meets specific criteria. Worked ivory imported as part of a traveling exhibition that meets specific criteria. And just to let you know, this is all part of the notice of the import-export community that's posted on our website at ws.gov. It's a great resource for looking things up. I printed out a copy. I brought 20, so the first 20 people come get it. It's yours. If not, you can go online and grab a copy, and I'm going to be reading from that notice to the import-export community. One of the antique exception. So anyone using the antique exception under Endangered Species Act, that's what ESA stands for, is to import, export, or sell across state boundaries any item made from or containing from an endangered or threatened species. You'll need to show documentation that first, in order to get that antique, we consider 100 years old. Customs purposes, it's not 100 years old. For Fish and Wildlife, it's 100 years old. It has to have been legally imported at a designated customs antique port. And if you're interested in that, you can go on to our regulations or call my inspectors in my office and we'll tell you. It has not been subject to certain types of repairs or modifications. And additionally, the particular species has to have been identified on that documentation. And this antique criteria also applies to rhinos and sea turtles and other ESA protected species. And if you're wondering what are ESA protected species, what do you do? Call my office and we'll let you know. Online too. Okay. Right. Another question I was getting is how does the U.S. importer document the identification of the species used in an ESA antique? So the person who's claiming the ESA benefit, all right, antique exception, must definitively identify that species in which the article is composed of, and they say that proof is either you can get DNA analysis, they do DNA analysis to determine what the ivory is. You can get a qualified appraisal, other documentation that demonstrates the identity of the species through detailed provenance of the article. So you're going to have to meet that criteria. And all this information, just so you know, is straight from our website. It's been put out to the public. So if you want to get some more information, again, let me know, and I will more than willing give it to you. I'll point you in the right direction, okay? All right, how does the importer document the age of an ESA antique? All right, again, if you're claiming that benefit of the ESA exception, you must definitely prove that it's not less than 100 years of age. And again, performed by testing from a laboratory, from a qualified laboratory facility, and or a qualified appraisal. And it'll tell you here, the provenance may be determined through the detailed history of the article, but not limited to family photos, ethnographic fieldwork, or other information. All right? U.S. exporter or seller within the United States document that their article meets the ESA exception for antiques. All right, the burden of proof is on the importer or the exporter. You need to prove that your article meets that antique exception. All right? And what articles do not qualify for the antique exception under ESA? Well, it's less than 100 years old, you're not going to qualify for the ESA antique exception. If they're not composed in whole or part of the ESA listed species, you don't qualify. If there were repairs and modifications made after December 28th of 1973, you don't qualify. And you can go down the list. If they were imported on or after September 22nd, 1982, at a port that was not designated for ESA antiques, you won't qualify also.
May I interrupt you? Folks in the back, there's a whole row of empty seats here, and we promise not to frown if you don't want to stay for the whole session, but lots of places to sit down if you want.
I know. All right. How can work African ivory be imported as part of a musical instrument? All right. You may import your work African ivory as part of a musical instrument, provided that that ivory was legally acquired before February 26, 1976. The ivory is not subsequently transferred from one person to another in the pursuit of financial gain or profit since that same date, and the person or group qualifies for CITES musical instrument certificate, and that musical instrument containing elephant ivory is accompanied by a valid CITES musical instrument certificate or an equivalent CITES document, and it's part of the CITES resolution conference. It's listed under 16.8, and it will spell it out there. And everything for CITES is on the CITES.org website. So if you click in resolution conference 16.8, it'll pop it up and you can read it right there.
So if I buy pre-band ivory and work it post-1978 or whatever it was, then it's no longer portable as part of the instrument? Is that what you're saying?
Okay. Can raw African elephant ivory be imported for personal use? Okay. As a musical instrument or as part of a traveling exhibition? And no, you cannot import raw elephant ivory. If you guys are paying attention, what could you import that might have raw African elephant ivory? I'm just going to be fast. There you go. I like it. Sports Center trophy. Alright, some exceptions, pre-convention CITES. There are exemptions for specimens that are acquired prior to the initial CITES list date. You get pre-convention certificates. They're also on the CITES paper, and they resemble an export permit. I know this is getting a little bit kind of into it a little bit. A certificate on the description is going to have a circuit date to establish the age of the specimen. And I wanted to throw you an example in. This one is an example. Alright, well, here's another CITES permit validation. A key point also with your permits is they're required to be validated. They have to be quantity, which is that arrow number 1. They have to list quantity. The quantity is going to come from the inspecting authority overseas, whether it be their version of customs or their version of Fish and Wildlife. They're going to put the quantity in number 1. They're going to stamp it when you see number 2, whatever their stamp or seal is. And number 3, they're going to sign it. So every time I sign a permit to go overseas, I do the same thing on our CITES permit. I will put the quantity that's going out after I confirm my inspection. I will stamp it with my stamp, and then I sign it. So that has to be on every permit that goes in and out. I just want to give you some information on the ATA carnets. I did get some questions regarding those. A sample collection, when they come through, it has to be on a valid ATA carnet. It has to go back to the country of origin. It has to remain intact. Also, it cannot be transferred, and it's for either a temporary exhibit or display. If you want more information on that, it's a little tricky, so definitely give us a call. We'll work through it step with you. It's under our regulations, which is 50 CFR 23.50. It talks about ATA carnets. So I was getting some calls recently about that. Again, this is my number, and that's my direct extension. I'm always available for anyone. If you don't want to talk to me, you can talk to my guys at the main line. You can fax us, you can email us. We're always available for you. Also, I know JFK, they have someone at their dispatch desk, and that's their phone numbers. You can ask any general questions to their dispatch officer, 224. That's their direct extension. They have someone else at the front window who's available to take questions too. And their supervisor is Supervisor Naima Aziz. She's great. Also, the contacts here, if you have any questions, you can go to the management authority at that number there. And also, we have our Office of Law Enforcement, their email address, so you can send them an email. And yes, you people do answer those emails. I get tons of those questions coming through from our local regional office, all kind of questions. And again, the Lima's Help Desk, if you're going to do electronic decks, you want to get set up on corporate billing, e-scan, you're going to channel your request to me, but you're going to work with Lima's, and they are gurus. They will get you up and online probably within a couple of hours once I get your request. So we are here for the public. We're here to help you guys. Just please engage with us. If you're ever not quite sure what to do with the shipping, be proactive. Give us a call first. I like this, I always tell people, sit down with me first. If you're going to bring something in, you're not quite sure that we can work it through. Tell you, this is allowed or this isn't allowed. Right.
If I'm a musician and I have a instrument containing ivory and all the workmanship is done before 1976, it's all legitimate,
Can you pass the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a musician traveling with a musical instrument, and all the workmanship is done before 1976, and it's all legitimate. What specific actions do I need to take to verify that before I travel with that instrument?
Yeah.
You gotta press that. Oh, okay.
So I think kind of recapping a lot of what was said here.
You need to hold the mic up.
Sorry, recapping a lot of what was said is there are certain wildlife species that are covered under CITES or the Endangered Species Act, and permits are typically required for those activities or for importing or exporting those pieces. So if you have a musical instrument that has ivory on it, it would require a CITES document. We could talk about this as we go on. There are several different types of documents that can fall under that, but anything that has ivory in it requires a document. And so there are, if you're taking it out one time and staying out of the country, as was mentioned, the pre-convention certificate would allow it to leave the country. If you're moving in and out of the country, there are, and it's just your personal instrument, there's what's called a musical instrument certificate. It acts like a passport for that instrument, and it'll allow you to come in and out of the country over the next 3 years. If it's a whole orchestra going or a large group, there's a traveling exhibition certificate, which would allow all of the instruments to travel together on that document. So it's important, kind of in general terms, that, as I said, you need a document. We start getting into specifics. I mean, there's a question there. There are a lot of nuances here and there, and that's unfortunately one of the problems with CITES and the Endangered Species Act is there's always some nuance, some exception to the rule, and so what do I have to do in these kind of cases? It was the website that's on there at the very top, the fws.gov. That's a good source to start with. You can either go on the law enforcement page, which is on the, when you look at the page on the left column, there's all of the offices within the Fish and Wildlife Service. Law enforcement has a lot of good information there. International Affairs, which is my office, we issue the CITES documents, also the Endangered Species Act documents, so that's also a good source. And contact information, the phone numbers that were put up were also there. So that's very general, and I know I didn't answer specifics.
You need the microphone again.
Can I just ask one more follow-up?
Sure.
Can you wait for the mic?
This,
Thanks.
this might be a silly question, but is it sufficient for the musician to declare that all the workmanship took place before 1976, or would they need to bring it to an appraiser and get a letter from, say, an expert in that instrument that everything occurred before that date?
You would have to have an appraiser or some documentation on the age of that piece. It could be, turn around. It could be somebody who can appraise instruments. As mentioned, it could be some kind of documentation regarding the historical aspect of the piece. If it may be that whoever produced the item or the instrument can do an appraisal or a statement, this was manufactured on this date. A lot of that kind of documentation could be used. In most cases, I mean, sometimes it's hard to get the definitive document. Again, talk to us. We can tell you, yes, this works, no, it doesn't. This is where you need a little more information. I mean, as it was mentioned, looking for documentation that shows what species is on that instrument. Recognizing that as wildlife experts, you probably don't know how to identify species. And a lot of times species, you can't even identify it, even an expert can't identify it on the piece because it's integrated into the musical instrument. Ivory is a prime example of that, is that you cannot tell the difference between Asian ivory and African ivory by looking at it. And so we'd be looking for documentation that might support the statement of whether it's an African elephant ivory or Asian ivory. And the two species are treated differently under CITES and in the Endangered Species Act, so different rules apply to them. It was kind of talked about, and it's in this document up here, and I know John mentioned it, the recent director's order that talked about the African Elephant Conservation Act. So, oh, sorry, I move away from the mic. I'm not good at that. So the African Elephant Conservation Act was passed in '89, I believe, or '90. And under that, it created a moratorium on the import of all African elephant ivory except for sport hunter trophies. This recent director's order carved out certain things within that moratorium, or carved it out of the moratorium to allow movement of things, and particularly musical instruments, personally owned items that are coming in as a household effects. The moratorium, those kind of activities have been carved out of the moratorium, so you can bring them in with the proper CITES document. So it, you know, unfortunately, it's a very complex issue, and as I said, there's a lot of nuances in kind of discussing, maybe as we discuss, different scenarios will be brought up, and we can kind of say this is the case or it's not, so that may help.
If I could, I want to, you know, as I say on Facebook, it's complicated. I mean, those of us up here representing the music industry have been trying to piece the puzzle together for a while, and we still have a lot of questions. And Tim can testify to that. We ask him questions all the time. But I think before we get much further into Q&A, I would just like to download the rest of the overview information from our colleagues at USDA, and then we'll throw the floor open, and it's going to be all Q&A after that. So in about another 15 minutes, if you can hang with us. So I'll turn the floor over now to John Varimas from USDA's. Oh, who's first?
Okay. First. Just want to. Okay. Thank you so much for, and I thank you for the invitation. My name is Randy Cadet. I'm the port director of the Linden Plant. Sorry. How's that? Can everyone hear me?
Better.
My name is Randy Cadet. I'm the port director of the Plant Inspection Station in Linden, New Jersey. There's some information brochures in the back. There's a brown one that talks about what we do at the Plant Inspection Station as per regulating and protecting our natural resources as it relates to plant and plant material. There's also another brochure that talks specifically about what our officers do by ways of protecting America's agriculture, plant and plant material. The one thing I want to talk about is that myself, Anna, and John work for the United States Department of Agriculture. It's the second largest government agency. We work in a division called PPQ, Plant Protection and Quarantine. So our focus is to inspect, detect, and protect America's natural resources against any plant pests, which can come in the form of disease and insects. We do this in partnership with our local counterparts, state by state. We do it with our federal counterparts within the Department of Homeland Security. Also with that is that we're not enforcement, we're regulatory. So there's a systematic way that we go through our decision-making process. And what I've seen is that one important facet of our job and one measurable element of our job is outreach. To be able to go out there, talk to the general public, and explain to them what we do and how they can partner with us. Anna and John are going to get into a little bit more information about how we go through a systematic approach when we make a final decision. One thing I want to talk about is that within outreach, there is a balance that we have to face within PPQ, Plant Protection and Quarantine, of safeguarding America's agriculture and facilitating trade. And that balance does go on a daily situation. One thing I just want to reinforce once again, within our aspect of inspecting for diseases and plants that might have, diseases and insects that might affect our natural resources, we are in the focus of trying to inspect and detect as quickly as possible. So the rationale that John and Anna are going to get into is with that safeguarding approach in mind and priority in mind. The idea of inspecting and detecting as quickly as possible to safeguard our resources. One thing that's really funny is a lot of people come to me and say, I really don't understand what you guys are doing. A lot of the things that we're doing can have a great impact on our natural resources. I worked in the federal building on Varick Street, only about maybe 4 or 5 blocks away, about 7 years ago, and my task was to inspect Central Park. We had an outbreak of an Asian longhorn beetle, small Chinese pest that was eating the sugar maple trees in the bird sanctuary in Central Park, only a couple of blocks away from Columbus Square. So the sad part is the only way we can contain that pest and protect the balance of the resources within Central Park was to cut down 3 trees. So our thing is not the idea that we just kind of make a decision. There is a regulatory process that has to go through, and I just want to make sure that people understand that we take action when it is necessary in order to protect the balance of the resources. A lot of time people are asking how the things come in, different pathways. I don't work out that much. My friend John, he works out a lot. They came in solid wood packing material, the pallets on barbells. So we didn't understand that a pest to our natural resources can come in on barbells. So we overlooked that pathway. But now we're looking at different ways of looking at different things that might impact. One thing that I have to emphasize with the Lacey Act, it's the idea that people are declaring things within the frame of botanical names. That's something very important because, example, I use the hammer analogy. I'm bringing a hammer. Yeah, but the handle is wood, so we have to declare the botanical name of the wood. So with that, I'll pass it to John and Anna.
Yeah, if I could just interject, I think it's coming through clearly, but just to underscore it, the folks from APHIS are sitting within the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and they're watching plants and trees and pests. And the folks from Fish and Wildlife are within the Department of Interior, and they're watching wildlife. So just to break that down a little bit.
Yeah, again,
John?
The Department of Agriculture was founded by Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s, so we've been around for a long time. When the Endangered Species Act was signed, it gave also to the Secretary of Agriculture the enforcement of the terrestrial plants. So after the creation of Homeland Security, we have a memorandum of agreement with Homeland Security, and they took the non-living terrestrial plants inspection. But we still have all the CITES responsibilities. And I'm the only full-time CITES person in the department. But it goes down to the botanists, and later Anna is going to explain you more. There are the designated ports, there are plant inspection stations, and the routine, there are life plants that go there. But there are also the expertise of the botanist to ID even timber. And we have a lot of collaborations. And so usually timber is identified at the USDA, US Forest Labs in Madison. We also, Fish and Wildlife Service has a forensic lab that they're working also on timber. But just to see most of the information, right now I'm at the sites.org, and at the bottom again is my contact information if you have any question. And if you click on our website page, hopefully it will come up. It'll take you where what forms you need or where are the designated ports. Okay. So you see, like again, we're for inspection and clearance of plant shipments.
John, can you pull the mic up, please?
Okay, I'm sorry. But you see, like, this is our web page, plant import information, and endangered plant species. It goes in more detail. I'm not going to read you through. Scientific authority and the management authority for CITES for the U.S. are still Department of Interior, Fish and Wildlife Service. However, the most updated information you can always get is on the CITES, the Secretariat webpage, cites.org. And you can see even here there's a new listing for Appendix 3. So if you go to CITES appendices, this is the list. And of course the animals are always first. You can go all the way at the bottom. I have requested somehow we can put the plants somewhere searchable. There are many ways to search. but you can see what's listed. And in June, I think that in June there will be more Appendix 3 listings. And you can see, I guess, there are a lot of ball makers. There's annotation number 10 for your Brazilian wood. So there is annotation. So it makes a difference. You have Appendix 1, 2, and 3. And it's also the annotation, what is actually listed, that you require a CITES permit that's going to be issued by Fish and Wildlife Service. So I'll just give you like a brief overview where you can find things. And I don't know, I think it's going to give you more details.
Okay, you have to sit. I'm botanist. I was presented. I work in Linden Plant Inspection Station, and I have a very short presentation. I try to be more specific for to give you more practical information. CITES and IFIS work together, so there was a lot of talking about CITES and wildlife and fisheries. APHIS.
Can you hear in the back? Can you hear Anna?
Yeah,
you have a moving microphone?
Okay, maybe I can.
Moving microphone.
Okay. APHIS is responsible for enforcing the flora component of CITES, and as John said, you can find out the flora listing in CITES Appendices website. Before you travel, first find out what plant or plant product you want to import or export. Look first on CITES website appendices. Second, check what plant parts are regulated. And third, check APHIS websites, CITES Timber Species Manual and Miscellaneous Processed Product. These manuals are very important, very online free, and very user friendly. This manual provides procedure for enforcement CITES timber species. Now there is a lot of information, but I just mentioned here to Table 2.2 will show a list of common and scientific names for CITES timber species. Table 5.1 show designated PPQ CITES ports, and there is much more information. And here I'm going to show how to work with this manual. How can you help me with this? Go to the manual. CITES, yeah.
But you can get to this manual when you click on the designated ports.
Yeah. First, we'll go on the APHIS manual. www.aphisusda.gov, I show it. After that, look for manuals. Find out CITES Timber Species Manual. Here there is, on the left side, there is content, and look for list of table. Click on the table. You will see table 2.1, table 2.2, as I say. It will show you, oh, this is, this will show you, this table show the name of timber species that you want to import. Here are common name, here there are other common name, and on the left side are scientific name. So you know the common name of your instrument or wood material that you want to import. Look on this table to see, find this name, and with scientific name go to CITES appendices. A little bit down, where was you're going to see designated CITES ports. So designated CITES ports in United States are on this table. In all United States, all plant material that can be imported. So you, here there is information, what state, and pay attention in what designated port, what kind material or commodity can be accepted. For example, in Alabama, is accepted only log and lumber. You have to look for all CITES, regulated plant, plant parts, and derivatives. If you scroll down, they are in alphabetical order. If you scroll down a little bit down, here is New Jersey. Here is address of our plant inspection station and my telephone number. If you need, you can call. So anywhere when you travel in the United States, you can find designated port on this website. Also, you can see here other interesting information about permits, regulation, violations. Okay. Let me go to the... If you are a violin maker or a musical instrument maker and you want to import any kind of wood that is not CITES regulated, always check this manual. This manual covers processed article of plant and non-plant sources that could serve to introduce exotic pests or parasites. Now, I will show how to work with this manual. Where was no, miscellaneous. So, on this manual, in my knowledge, a few years ago has been a big problem with violin maker that wanted to import bamboo. And this bamboo has been seized from Customs and Border Protection. Let me see why this bamboo has been seized. On this manual, you can look for wood material that you want to import, especially for you. When you go in the content of this manual, there is an index page. Click on the index, scroll down, and look for wood. On W, click on W here, and after that, look for wood. Where is the wood? Okay. So here we have woods and all different kind of wood that are regulated by Department of Agriculture. And here we see bamboo, and there is a table. Click on this link, and it will show you bamboo. Wait a second. So.
Sorry, what about if the bamboo was grown in America? Because there's tons of bamboo here, Florida, everywhere there's bamboo. So if you take bamboo from here, take it out, take it back, what's happening?
No, there are zones.
This is only for international travel, is this manual.
Bamboo from America, you go out, you come back. Like this gentleman from Canada who got his flutes. They told him that his flutes were safely destroyed. So he was very happy because they were safely destroyed. How did you know that the bamboo didn't come from America? Is it illegal to take bamboo out of America and back in America?
No. You want? Okay. Again,
that's a very good question. What happened? It's not illegal to export plant material outside the United States. What happens is when you enter the country of destination, that custom organization will ask you for documentation. Okay. So the possibility of the bamboo leaving the United States, entering a foreign country, and returning is going to be very limited because the customs official within that country of destination will ask you for paperwork. But let's just say that the bamboo left the United States, went to a foreign country, and came back. Once it comes back, we're going to ask you for paperwork. So what it is that there's a lot of information when it comes to declaring the goods you're bringing in. So if you're leaving with a commodity, you're going to be asked at the country of destination. When you're returning back to the United States, we're going to be asked because we don't know if that bamboo, like you said, is from Canada, from Florida, or so on. So that means we're going to be asking you some kind of conversation.
Okay, how do you know it's the same piece of bamboo? I mean, there's billions of bamboos all over the world. So if you take a piece of bamboo in America, take it out, take a piece of bamboo from France and say, is this the same bamboo? I mean, just, what do you do about it?
We're getting sidetracks, and again, that's like we've been on many conference calls, and all these questions can come up. To finish, again, it was Homeland Security, I think, at JFK, that it was an unattended baggage, international. So they have other priorities in Homeland Security. There's nobody here to defend them. But I guess Just to summarize some of them, you can call their offices, and they have what happened actually was destroyed for agricultural reasons. USDA was never contacted, because I checked, again, except Linden, JFK also has a designated port, is a plant inspection station, there's a botanist there. I sent them an email, they said nobody contact them from Homeland Security. So again.
Okay, the only thing I want to say once again, like you said, we don't know if it came here or did not come here. So the same question on our end. So the regulation says if we do not know the country of origin, we have to assume it's not American origin. Okay, but let's just go through a systematic approach. The rationale, it's not the idea of the bamboo, yes or no. It's the possible pest threat or the pathogen threat involved with the bamboo. So Anna's going to get into that a little bit more specific about bamboo.
So I just want a little bit more careful to look in this table. So if bamboo was split, cut lengthwise, and was dry, that means this bamboo is incapable of propagation. So this bamboo, can you smell it?
So once again, the emphasis is that it's incapable of propagation, that it cannot grow, that it was split, cut. And you want to scroll over?
Make it. So in this case, this bamboo should be inspected and released with no problem. If you go down, there is different kind. So if bamboo was dry but not cut, so it's incapable of propagation. It requires import permit. Also, if this bamboo should be used in garden, in nursery, it should be fumigated. So there is chemical treatment. Scroll down a little. If bamboo is neither not split, but is dry, is incapable of propagation, will not be used together with a living plant, so should require import permit and should be inspected and released without chemical treatment. But if I just talking about how to use the manual.
Yeah.
After that, there is a bamboo that was not dry and is moisture. So it may be capable of propagation. So this bamboo has prohibit entry. And there is a small annotation. When you scroll down, see how this bamboo could be tested. With the tissue paper. If the tissue paper has moisture, sap still remains, this bamboo is capable of propagation, so it's prohibit entry. So in this way you can look.
We'll come back to that. She's trying to walk you through the steps that you would need to follow regardless of the species. But we'll come to the open floor very quickly now. Colin?
Yeah. As John just said, this is an example, and actually towards the end, I'll actually walk you through the layman's approach to importing the woods that we actually do so. So if you just hang with us, we'll actually get to a step-by-step instruction. Yeah.
Music maker import wood that is not CITES regulated, but could be used for making musical instrument. That's why I'm giving this example, and this was a case. Now go to the presentation. Next one. Before I came,
The reason why we brought
Need a mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just to emphasize why she spoke about bamboo. There was a situation in JFK a couple of years ago. I believe somebody was bringing raw material to make a flute. So I wanted to show you guys with that example.
It's 2 months ago.
Oh, 2 months ago.
This is this example John just discussed.
Oh, John just discussed. So what is it? Just to show you the systematic approach when we go through our decision-making process. She's going to talk about rosewood, and I think maybe it's more applicable to what your focus is on now. All right, good.
So before I came here, I received from Colin 3 scenarios about musicians who travel with their instrument in a couple of countries, and 1 violin maker and bow maker. And their instrument contain plants and animal material. Some of them are CITES regulated. So I take a look through these scenarios. All these scenarios contain, musical instruments contain 3 types of woods that are CITES regulated. One is Indian rosewood, ebony, and pernambuco. First thing that you should look, find out scientific name of this wood material that is used. I show you, you can find out scientific name in CITES timber species manual. After that, with scientific name, go to Appendix 1 to 3 of CITES website and look for annotations if there is any. And now, for example, I give you here for these 3 species, CITES 1, Appendix 2 and Appendix 3. Always know Appendix 1 require import and export permit. Appendix 2 require export permit, and Appendix 3 export permit from certain country when the material come. Ebony, scientific name is Diospirus, and there is annotation number 5. Now, this annotation say logs, swanwood, and winner sheets are regulated. So finished product like musical instrument is not regulated, doesn't require export permit. Second, Indian rosewood, scientific name Dalbergia dariniensis, population of Panama. So if the material come from Panama, you have to look for this annotation to what it say. All parts and derivatives are regulated except seeds and pollen, finished product, packaged and ready for retail trade. So musical instruments doesn't require export permit. They are exception. The third one, Pernambuco, scientific name is Alpinia enchilata, log, swanwood, winner sheet, including unfinished wood articles used for fabrication of bows and stringed musical instruments. So finished product again is not regulated. You don't need export permit for this musical instrument that contain this type wood. There are mentioned several animal species, and this has to be referred to wildlife in service. So with a little exception, like instruments that are made that contain Brazilian rosewood that belongs to CITES 1, most of the musical instruments that contain CITES 2 does not require permit because regulation are mostly for log, swanwood, winner, and playwood.
So I'm sorry, what is a log? For instance, if there's a Pernambuco plank that's already shaped in the size of the bow, is that raw wood? Is that a log or is that a bow?
Bow a finished instrument.
Completely finished?
Bow. Is finished instrument. Is not log. Log is.
If it's already shaped like a bow, you don't need to import it.
No, bow blanks are covered under CITES. You wouldn't need a CITES document for the blanks.
But if the bow is
finished, you don't need a CITES document.
No, you just take it because of the mother of pearl, right? So we're wasting a lot of time here.
Yeah.
Let me ask some specific questions.
No, actually, let's finish your presentation and then we'll get to the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, that's it. So there were some issue. I think the previous that's it. If there is some issue, they should be addressed according to the issue. If our customs issue, go to DHS. If our site plant issue, we should be referred to John Derimas or Tim Tobert. But we have to remember, we regulate living plants, and plant quarantine issue are enforced by PPQ for live plants and CBP for non-living plants. PPQ recommends appropriate quarantine action if we have been informed for this shipment. CITES animal issue to Fish and Wildlife Service. There's one more.
No, we're done. We're done. All right. Just once again, it's just the emphasis I want to give out. Oh, I'm sorry. Keep making that small mistake. The one thing I want to emphasize is that we are in the business of inspection, detection, and protection. What happens is that we work in partnership with Department of Homeland Security. A lot of the different aspects when it comes to importing and exporting, it's within the boundaries of Department of Homeland Security. They're enforcing our regulations. So a lot of the things that I wanted to express today was for you guys to understand the scenario. And I think the Q&A, I think was going to be very, very helpful for us to get a better understanding of what you guys are concerned about, and also that we can also maybe able to take some information back and see if we can work out, you know, more information out there to the public. All right, thank you.
Okay, I want to thank all of the government panelists for a very robust information-filled presentations. So on this side of the table, we've just heard laws, regulations, manuals, books. On that side of the table is the reality of the world of music, and we want to now bring the two worlds together and have a kind of moderated, sit around the kitchen table kind of discussion. So let's throw the floor open and get to questions that are most pertinent to you to try to break some of this information down. And yeah, there's a question right here.
You talked a lot about the criteria. What I'm concerned about as a professional musician that goes in and out of the country is the enforcement and going through TSA. Now, I have to have issues and have none of these issues. How does the TSA agent know that? They, first of all, the idea of them pulling my bow out of my case to check the tip to see if it's ivory is a nightmare. Second, I haven't happened yet. I haven't been out of the country since we did this, but that's one scenario that I'm always frightened they just open my case. Now they're going to have to take the bow out of the case and look at it. Do they know how to handle a bow? Do they know what an ivory tip looks like? Okay. They know what Pernambouc is, but they know what rosewood is. How? And then I'm sitting there going, it's not that. I have no papers because it does not contain the items that you are concerned about. Would I stand there and just cry because they're going to take my bow and say, well, we don't know? I mean, I don't understand what the interface is now with security to make sure this is done correctly.
Hi, TSA is not looking for fish and wildlife infractions or USDA. They are concerned with the safety of the plane. So they're not in...
Microphone.
Right, so Customs is doing it. Explain to me the process by which I, as a professional musician, walk in and out of this country with my instrument and my bow. What happens? Customs agents are all going to be thoroughly trained. I mean, I defy you to go out there and look at the thousands of bows and show me the ones that have ivory tips.
Well, that's why you're making an appointment with the appropriate agency. No, we are the experts. I mean, I'm answering your question. So if you are importing or exporting something with ivory, then you're making a appointment with Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Then you are exporting.
Hold on.
I'm walking up with my personal belonging that I own. I'm walking in and out. All right.
Okay.
I'm just, this is terrifying.
All right. Well, let's see if we can kind of figure out exactly what's going on. Best way. You're right. Sorry. The TSA is not going to know the wildlife. The customs officer may not know. But if they have a question, they should contact Fish and Wildlife Service. So if you have an instrument that has no protected wood under it, I mean, the wood is all non-CITES listed, there's no ivory on it. I mean, a documentation with that instrument, just saying, you know, an appraiser statement, it doesn't have any of these things. This is what it's made out of. Having that in the case would be helpful. So you can provide that.
So you're saying now every professional, every musician in the United States now needs to travel with documentation that says exactly what their instrument and their bow contains and does not contain.
You do not have to have that. It would be helpful if you had it. So it's just, it is for your protection. So if the instrument contains a CITES listed species, so I mean, probably for the most part, you're looking at ivory, either African or Asian ivory, which is a protected species, sea turtle, or Brazilian rosewood. Pernambuco is listed under CITES, but a finished product does not require a document. So bows that are finished, made from Pernambuco, don't require a CITES document. Mammoth ivory is not covered under CITES, is not a protected species. So if you have a bow with mammoth ivory on it, have a document with it that says, you know, this is mammoth ivory.
it would help for, if a customs officer looks at it and says, this is ivory, I need to call Fish and Wildlife Service, it'll help resolve that issue. If you have these species on your instrument, then you need to get a CITES document for that. You can get, as I mentioned earlier, the traveling exhibition certificate or a musical instrument certificate that will travel. That's basically that instrument's passport, will allow it to move back and forth. CITES has been around for a very long time. This is not new. Unfortunately, there was a disconnect between the musical instrument industry or community and the government over those things. And so with what happened with the musical instrument about 2.5 years ago when we started working with Heather and these other organizations, we all kind of went, oh wow, we have to have permits. These are things that are covered. Then with the director's order that came out earlier in the year, that further kind of, well, lack of a better term, incited everything. And people really got scared. So it is a matter of communications. We need to communicate with you all and the instrument industry, musicians. These are the kind of the things that you have to look for, and we have to work together on this. We're not looking to seize instruments. We're looking for compliance.
I would like to ask you a question briefly. Are you guys just waking up? The carnet, you know what an ATA carnet is?
Yes.
The American orchestras and the European orchestras are traveling with, the New York Philharmonic travels with 400 bows. They've been traveling since 1973, 10 times out of the country, with 400 bows, with ivory tips, with tortoiseshell, with everything. All of a sudden, you're waking up and taking some private victims just to make an example. What are you going to do about the New York Philharmonic and the carnets that are issued to travel with the instrument? Is that legal, or is it illegal to have 400 bows with ivory tips? You say mother of pearl is illegal. There's one pearl that's illegal. You don't even know how to recognize it, and you would seize the bow because it has a little piece of pearl. You guys have to get your act together and, yeah, deciding what to do.
And
Young?
So a couple of things I wanted to ask.
I need an answer to my question.
Okay.
What about the ATA carnets and 400 boats from the New York Philharmonic or the LA Philharmonic? What do you do about that?
Yes. So orchestras have been traveling in and out of the country for a long time. Individuals have been traveling with their instruments for a long time. And yes, we are now waking up to the fact that there are requirements. And this is for your protection as much as ours. We may say, well, yeah, you can go out with your instrument, but the country that you go into may look at it and say, well, this is a CITES species, and they may be, and forgive me if you think this is funny, but they may be less helpful than we can be. They may just seize it and you never see it again. We at least within the United States have a mechanism for things that get seized, a process. So we're trying to make this as smooth as we can. It is a new system, a new thing for you all. It's a new issue for us working with this community. And we're hoping that we can, over the time, kind of smooth these things out. Have you recognize what documentation is required? We recognize what's going on, and we try to figure out a way to get these documents issued to you, get your shipments cleared, your instruments cleared through our system and through the foreign countries' systems, so nothing gets seized, nothing gets damaged. And we certainly, I think, well, I won't speak for law enforcement. I certainly wouldn't want to open up a case and pull out a bow or touch an instrument. That's your responsibility.